Hi, my name's Catherine Del Valle, and this is a required video for my EDU 580 Methods and Technique class at Georgetown College under the supervision of Dr. Vesterland. We will be discussing WIDA, can-do descriptors, and an English lesson that has been modified for use for a culturally, language, and diverse student, also known as a CLD or an ESL, ELL student in the classroom. I want to introduce Angie Fultz, English teacher here at the high school that I work at. Angie, how long have you been teaching, and what levels of English do you teach?
Okay, this is my 27th year of teaching. I teach 9th grade and 10th grade English at the time. I have about 20 years of special education experience, and in the last 7 years I've been teaching English at the high school.
So your special ed education experience probably has been able to help you with some ESL students.
Yes, very much so.
And have you ever heard of students taking the WAPT or the Access test?
I have heard of them being tested. I'm not real sure what the names of them are or what what exactly they test or the results of those. So.
Okay. Well, the WAPT stands for WIDA Access Placement Test. The Access is a yearly test which is aligned with the WIDA English Language Development Standards, and it assesses each of the four language domains of listening, speaking, reading, and writing, which for me is very similar to my Spanish teaching because we do the same thing.
Okay.
We've had students that take the Access test, and we have one student which we'll name her student T.
Okay.
We will be discussing today.
Okay.
And she won't take the Access test, or no, she just took the Access test, so we'll know the scores later on this year.
Okay.
Okay, so my next question. So do you know what WIDA is?
No, I don't.
Okay, well, WIDA is an acronym, and it stands for World Class Instructional Design and Assessment.
Okay.
It is used when we create lesson plans for our CLD students. It consists of 5 standards, and those 5 standards are social and instructional language, language arts, the language of mathematics, language of science, and language of social studies.
Okay.
And each standard has 4 domains, which are listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And each one of those domains has a level.
Okay.
Where students will either entering, which is level 1. Level 2 is emerging.
Okay.
Level 3, developing. Level 4 is expanding. Level 5 is bridging. And level 6, which is reaching.
Okay.
And so our students move through those levels as their language skills increase.
Okay.
My next question is going to be, have you ever heard of can-do statements, can-do descriptors?
Yes, I have.
Okay. What do you know about can-do descriptors?
Basically, just writing your objectives, letting the students know what they're going to be doing for the day. We have written can-do statements before.
Okay.
So, yes.
So, and the can-do descriptors, they basically highlight what language learners can do at various stages of their language development as they engage in teaching and learning in academic contexts, so that academic language. And so they are organized around 4 communicative purposes, which are called key uses. And those are to recount, to explain, to argue, and discuss. And I'm sure you probably use those in English class all the time.
All the time.
It gives educators connections to academic expectations outlined in college and career readiness standards, which we're always discussing at school.
Right.
Okay. So we're going to discuss a lesson plan that we have modified a bit. And so, like I said, we're going to mention this for the students for the purpose of protecting our students' identity. We're going to refer to the student as student T.
Okay.
And so student T was she's in your 10th grade English class.
Yes.
And she modified a lesson plan, or we used a lesson plan that I modified for you, which was an English literature class on the tragedy of Julius Caesar.
Yes.
And so class started with a bell ringer.
Yes, yes. We always open with a bell ringer. This lesson, it varies on what the bell ringers might cover. And on this day, we covered an EOC concept that they need to know, and that was homophones. And that basically words that sound the same or spell the same, and different definitions of those words.
Which for a CLD student
Yes.
would be a little difficult because they're trying to learn the English, and
Yes.
And our student in particular is at a 1 according to the WAPT score that we received. She is an entering, and so for her it probably would be a little difficult to understand the differences between of homophones.
Yes.
So we made sure that she could use a glossary, which is found in the back of the textbook, a Spanish glossary.
Yes.
That
That is in the back of the textbook.
And then we also allowed her to use. We let her use a Spanish-English dictionary.
Yes.
So that if she wants to look up some of the words, she can look up the word. And its definition in both languages. Now, after the bell ringer, we had a little period of question and answers, which reviewed. You orally reviewed. With the
Yes,
students.
I walk through and check their answers to make sure they're understanding the process and understanding the concept. And then we talk about their answers, and they share their answers and discuss that with the class.
Right,
So.
and then that was about previous acts. Of the
okay, yes, we
story.
previewed the we were on act. Yes, we previewed the previous acts and all the scenes that we went through. Just kind of a summary. We kind of paraphrased and kind of talked about what paraphrasing was, and I would ask questions to the students, and some of them would voluntarily, tell me their summary of this act or scene if we would be that specific. So
okay,
yes.
And then in order to have our student T know that she understood, we would ask her just simple questions on on what those particular acts or characters were from those scenes.
Yes, so sometimes I might I ask individual students sometimes to give their input, and sometimes just as a follow-up for student T, I would ask her a particular question, maybe something we had talked about before that maybe she was struggling with, and I felt like she finally got a grasp of it. I might kind of emphasize that or kind of reinforce that as a follow-up to make sure she's still understanding.
Okay.
So yes.
Okay, so then after they went through this period of question and answers, then you had volunteer students who volunteered to read the Act 3 aloud.
Yes.
And those particular volunteers were given the written copy in front of them, and they were able to read their part of the play.
I make copies of the modern day version. So the students I have in this class there's several that are lower level performing students or just average, and some of them struggle with the Shakespearean English language, and the different vocabulary and the uses of the words confuse them. So we do look at the modern day version, which interprets it on No Fear Shakespeare, where they interpret that into modern day language. And so the ones that read aloud, I hand them a script that has the modern day language in it. I show the rest of the class on the screen, on the whiteboard, what the modern day version is, so they can follow along that way. And they read that out loud.
Okay. And then now student T was given, even though on the smart board we had the No Fear Shakespeare displayed there, student T was given a Spanish version of the play, and so she had that in front of her.
Yes.
In addition to that, we discussed some other modifications, like having the students maybe act out that scene.
Yes.
Which I know you said you've done before.
We did, yes. We did a previous scene that way.
After they read through this scene, it was just discussed a little bit,
Yes.
and then an audio was played from the textbook
For the next scene, yes.
for the next scene to allow them to listen to it,
Yes.
as opposed to listening to their fellow students, classmates reading it aloud.
Right.
And again, student T was allowed to use the Spanish version to kind of follow along, even though
Yes.
she was listening in English as well.
Yes, and the audio also helps with fluency. Reading it aloud. The reading fluency. So that
Yeah, and she could
helps
hear
with-
that,
yes.
and she can also see it on the
Yes.
smart board. And then after that, they did a workbook page, which they did on literary analysis. And
Yes.
So
Yes,
so
it
she
was, yeah.
they had the workbook, and
Right.
and it has some of the different
Literary terms.
right, the literature, the academic language for language arts
Yes.
that were used, and so she was able to, or they all worked
Yes.
basically with a partner.
Yes, they had a partner. This is a little challenging because they had to pull out specific lines or scenes from the act, and they had to identify whether it was a dialogue, a soliloquy, a aside, or a monologue, and how that character performed that and which one it was. And they also had to practice paraphrasing, so they had to read it in its context and then paraphrase it in their own words. So with a partner, student T
right
could discuss this with her partner, and they would talk about it together and then paraphrase it. And I'm always sure with student T that I pair her up with someone who is one of the higher level students that can help her a little more.
Okay,
So
good. And then so in our school, in our the high school that we work at, that we teach at, we don't have a lot of ESL students.
No.
We usually, if we have one every year or every other year, might be the most. So our teachers do not get to do a lot of work with ESL students. And so this year I'm working with trying to educate a lot of them on the different ways, strategies, although a lot of them already have been using strategies even before specifically going over them. So we were able to look at today these great can-do descriptors, which I have some copies for you.
okay,
to keep.
great, wonderful.
And so and then this way we can continue working with student T.
Okay,
And I thank you.
okay, thank you.